At a luxury beach resort built on perfection, one man showed up to do his job calm, professional, prepared. He wasn't there to make a statement. He was there to deliver love in the form of a wedding two women had waited their whole lives to celebrate. But behind the polished smiles and beachfront views, something darker was waiting. Quiet hostility, subtle sabotage, and a man in power who would do anything to stop what he didn't understand. What began as a microaggression turned into something much more dangerous, and the only thing standing in its way was documentation, dignity, and the quiet resistance of someone who refused to back down. This isn't just a story about prejudice, it's about strategy, about calm persistence. And what happens when the system finally starts to crack? Was justice really served in the end, or is this just the beginning? Let us know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe dignity always deserves a witness. The air smelled of salt and hibiscus, warm and thick with the promise of paradise. Coral Bay Retreat sat like a pearl on the edge of the Caribbean, its pristine white buildings spilling down a bluff toward the turquoise sea. Palm trees lined the winding stone pathways, and every breeze carried the gentle hush of waves brushing the shore. For most, this was a dream, a coveted oasis booked out months in advance by celebrities, foreign dignitaries, and luxury-seeking couples from around the globe. For Andre Wells, it was just another canvas. He stepped out of the private shuttle van with a clipboard in one hand, a sleek weekender bag slung over his shoulder, and a Bluetooth earpiece nestled into his left ear. He wore cream linen slacks, a pale blue button-down shirt rolled to the elbows, and polished leather sandals. Every detail was thought through, from his wardrobe to his schedule to the personalized welcome baskets awaiting the wedding guests. Andre didn't do chaos. He did elegance, poise, and precision. The Coral Bay Retreat was hosting the wedding of Leah Tran and Gabriela Mendez, a couple who'd found Andre through a feature in Modern Union, an upscale LGBTQ+ wedding magazine. This was the kind of event Andre had built his brand on: classy, intentional, and unapologetically queer. He'd handled governors' daughters, rock stars, and billionaires' third weddings, but Leah and Gabriella felt different, grounded, emotionally sincere. They reminded him of why he started in the first place. The lobby shimmered with glass and marble. An indoor fountain whispered under a skylight, and a soft jazz cover of Billie Holiday played in the background. Andre stepped up to the front desk, where a young man in a crisp white uniform greeted him with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Coral Bay, Mr. Wells. We have your suite ready, and Ms. Tran and Ms. Mendez are already checked in. The wedding is still scheduled for Saturday." "Yes," Andre replied, flashing a polished smile. "We'll be doing the rehearsal on Thursday, a private welcome dinner on Friday, and the ceremony at the Sunset Terrace on Saturday. I've sent all the revised details to the front office. Are you the concierge I should coordinate with?" "Actually," a deep voice cut in from behind the desk, "you'll be dealing with me." Andre turned. A tall, square-shouldered man in his early 50s stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He wore a navy blazer over a white polo shirt and khakis, the Coral Bay crest embroidered just above his heart. His pale blonde hair was combed with military precision. "I'm Scott Denham," he said, "General Manager." Andre extended a hand. "Andre Wells, Event Director, a pleasure." Scott took the handshake but didn't smile. "We don't usually host political events here," he said coolly, looking Andre over like he was inspecting an unexpected delivery. Andre blinked once smoothly. "It's a private wedding." Scott's lips thinned, but he said nothing more. He turned to the receptionist. "Make sure Mr. Wells gets the standard welcome package. No need for the champagne basket." Andre caught the subtle shift in tone. Not overt, not actionable, just enough to plant a flag in the sand. He nodded once, thanked the receptionist, and turned toward the elevators. The suite was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean, and a bowl of fresh-cut mangoes sat on the coffee table beside a note that read, "Welcome, Mr. Wells, we're so glad you're here," in Leah's handwriting. Andre exhaled and loosened his shoulders. He wasn't here to make friends, he was here to make sure two women had the best day of their lives. Still, Scott Denham's greeting played on loop in his mind like a song you couldn't quite shut off. "We don't usually host political events." As if love required a permit. As if the presence of queer people automatically disrupted the aesthetic. Andre opened his laptop, synced to the resort Wi-Fi, and pulled up his planning software. Within the hour, he was on site at the Sunset Terrace with a measuring wheel, marking out the aisle length and flagging potential tripping hazards in the cobblestone. He snapped photos, logged notes, sent a dozen emails. By the time the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the water, Andre had already smoothed out a floral delivery error, met with the resort's culinary team, and triple-confirmed the backup generator was functioning. The guests were due to arrive in waves starting tomorrow morning. At dinner, Andre took a quiet table on the patio, trying to blend into the relaxed tourist crowd. He sipped his iced tea and reviewed his timeline on a tablet. The resort's signature dish, a blackened snapper over coconut rice, was as perfect as ever, but then he heard Scott Denham's voice again. "All I'm saying is there are places for this kind of thing. Why here?" Andre froze, thumb still hovering above the screen. "I mean, it's a family resort," Scott continued. "People come here to relax, not to be confronted with," he lowered his voice, but not enough, "agendas." Andre turned slightly. Scott sat at the corner table, speaking to two older white guests with weathered skin and country club tan lines. They nodded sympathetically. One of the women glanced around, then leaned in. "I saw the couple earlier. The dark-haired one looks like a man, I couldn't tell." Scott chuckled. "Exactly. Can't even tell what's what anymore." Andre felt his jaw tight. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He pressed the record button on his phone, hidden beneath his linen napkin. Then he stood and calmly left his untouched dessert on the plate. Back in his suite, Andre uploaded the audio file to the cloud, dated and time-stamped. He started a folder, labeled it Coral Bay Incident Prep. Beneath it, 1 lobby tension, 2 dinner recording. He'd been here before. Not this exact place, not this exact man, but the blueprint was always the same. The microaggressions, the coded language, the plausible deniability, but he had learned how to play a longer game. Andre Wells didn't yell, he didn't storm offices or make scenes. He documented, he planned. He found the cracks in the wall and widened them until the whole rotten structure gave way. This time would be no different. By morning, the Coral Bay retreat was humming with movement. Private vans rolled through the front gates, delivering guests in waves, each welcomed by warm Caribbean air and the scent of hibiscus drifting in the breeze. Andre moved through the lobby like the conductor of an invisible orchestra, his clipboard in hand, coordinating with bellhops, checking on gift baskets, and answering questions from the first wave of wedding guests. Leah and Gabriella arrived together, sunglasses on, laughter echoing, arm in arm like they had just stepped out of a travel magazine. Their joy was infectious, and their guests, family, college friends, coworkers, carried that same quiet pride that often came with watching two women claim space in a world that still didn't always offer it freely. Andre greeted them both with a warm embrace, then gave Gabriella a quick rundown of the welcome dinner timeline while Leah introduced their moms to the concierge. Everything, at least for now, looked beautiful on the surface. Later that morning, Andre met with the catering staff in a conference room near the kitchens. He had just begun reviewing the revised dinner layout when Scott Denham walked in unannounced. He didn't greet anyone, didn't sit, he simply approached the table and pulled the layout sheet from Andre's hand without asking. "This layout won't work," Scott said, his tone flat. "The Coral Room has a traditional design. It's not meant for this kind of setup." Andre remained seated. He looked up, polite but unmoved. "We've hosted over a dozen receptions with similar layouts in this room. I've reviewed your public-facing materials, Mr. Denham. The design is entirely appropriate." Scott's mouth twitched, but he didn't budge. "It's not about the layout, it's about what it represents. We've already had a few comments from guests." Andre kept his voice even. "This is a private wedding. The Coral Bay brand, as publicly advertised, prides itself on inclusivity." There was a long pause. A few staff members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Scott handed the layout back with a curt nod. "Revert to the standard setup. I'll be overseeing the room going forward." He turned and left as abruptly as he'd entered. Andre sat in silence for a moment, then turned to the catering manager, a soft-spoken woman named Elise. She met his gaze without flinching. "Could you send me the last few Coral Room setups from past weddings?" he asked, "just for comparison." She nodded once, "Of course." Andre thanked her, stood, and left the room with his clipboard tucked under his arm like a shield. Back in the Coral Room, he spent the next hour documenting every angle. The floors, the window spacing, the existing layout from past events, he photographed it all. He pulled up Coral Bay's Instagram on his laptop and took screenshots of past events. The images were clear opposite-sex couples, nearly identical setups, glowing captions praising the elegance of the space. Nothing about this wedding's layout was unusual. Only the couple was different. He filed the images, labeled the folder, and added a new note to the timeline of events. Then he closed the laptop and took a breath. That evening, Leah and Gabriella invited Andre to a private dinner with their families at a restaurant just beyond the resort's beachfront. He smiled and said yes, choosing not to mention anything about the morning's exchange. Their families were beaming, their shoulders finally relaxed. They had traveled across countries and cultures to get here. This wasn't the time, but the silence at the resort was growing heavier. The next morning, Andre stopped by the front office to request additional chairs for Friday's welcome dinner. The desk attendant, someone new, fidgeted as she typed on her keyboard. "Mr. Wells," she said, glancing up nervously, "Mr. Denham has requested that all future event adjustments go through him directly." Andre kept his expression neutral. "I'm the contracted event director. That was agreed upon when the venue was booked." "I understand," she said quickly, but he was very clear. Andre thanked her, then pulled out his phone and opened the voice memos app. He recorded a short note to himself summarizing the interaction, time-stamped and detailed. Later, he'd log it in the growing folder of incidents. By mid-afternoon, Andre walked toward the Coral Room for a follow-up meeting and found the door locked. A sign had been taped to it: "Maintenance, do not enter." There were no tools nearby, no sound of repairs, no crew, just silence behind a closed door. He went back to the front desk. The same attendant from that morning gave him a tight smile. "Do you know what repairs are scheduled in the Coral Room?" he asked. She hesitated. "Mr. Denham said it was unexpected, structural concerns." Andre's tone didn't change. "Your maintenance board in the lobby doesn't list any scheduled repairs today." She blinked. "I am not sure, sir." He thanked her, walked back to the lobby and snapped 2 photographs. One of the empty maintenance board, one of the sign on the Coral Room door. When he returned to his suite, he labeled them carefully and filed them away with the others. That night, Andre called someone he hadn't spoken to in a few months, Malcolm Reyes, a former hotel executive turned consultant who now worked with a legal group that advocated for fair treatment in hospitality. Malcolm listened carefully as Andre recounted the last 2 days. "You're doing everything right," Malcolm said. "Don't confront him directly, let him keep digging the hole, you just keep collecting the rope." Andre sighed, his voice low. "I want to protect the couple, that's all." "I know, and you are, but this is bigger than their wedding. If they're doing this to you, they've done it to others." Andre sent Malcolm a secure link to the growing folder. Then he sat in the dark of the suite for a while, the sound of the waves drifting in through the balcony doors. He wasn't angry, he wasn't scared, he was tired, but he was also determined. The next morning, his inbox pinged. A brief message from Coral Bay's corporate office thanked him for bringing forward recent concerns and assured him they were initiating an internal review of staff conduct. It wasn't a resolution, but it was movement. And that was enough for now. Andre had always believed that luxury was more than aesthetics. True elegance, he thought, was in the way people were treated, how kindness and precision could elevate a space beyond expensive tile and imported linens. But at Coral Bay, something colder lay beneath the polish. The resort was still stunning, yes, but the atmosphere was shifting. He felt it in the glances that lingered too long, in the polite silences that echoed just a bit louder than they had on the first day. It was Wednesday morning, and Andre was reviewing the ceremony staging at the Sunset Terrace. The view was still breathtaking, an uninterrupted horizon, gentle breeze, golden light pouring across the palm-lined arch. The catering team was setting up for a small afternoon tasting, while Andre paced the platform with a clipboard marking last-minute notes. Elise, the catering manager, approached with a hesitant look. "Just a heads up," she said softly. "Scott's scheduled a walkthrough with some corporate reps tomorrow morning. Unusual this close to an event." Andre frowned. "Is he involving them in the wedding plans?" "No," she said. "He's calling it a property standards audit, but the timing is strange. He hasn't done one in months." Andre nodded slowly. He knew what it was: pressure, a performance, a warning. "Thanks for telling me," he said. She looked down at the clipboard in his hands. "I saw the photos you were taking yesterday, you documenting everything." "I am." "Good," she said quietly, "because people are watching, even if they're not saying anything." He met her eyes, and for a second there was something unspoken between them. A small act of solidarity in a place built on silence. That afternoon, Andre received an alert from the AV contractor he'd hired for the ceremony. "Hey Andre," the message read. "Weird update, just got a call from Coral Bay admin. They're reviewing vendor compliance and told us we might not be allowed on site Friday. Thought you should know." Andre stared at the message for a long second before replying. "Do not cancel, do not reschedule, I'll handle it." He immediately opened his laptop and drafted a formal letter of notification to Coral Bay's legal department and customer service division. He cited interference with contractual obligations, potential discrimination, and vendor obstruction within 72 hours of a scheduled event. He also added a paragraph detailing the AV contractor's credentials, licensed, vetted, and already approved by Coral Bay 2 weeks prior. He attached the email confirmation, signed by Scott Denham. He sent it, then he took a breath and closed his laptop. Later that night, Andre took a quiet walk along the boardwalk. The moon floated low above the water, silvering the tips of the waves. He passed the occasional guest, heard soft music from one of the poolside cabanas, but mostly he walked alone, thinking. The resort was trying to wear him down. Small cuts day after day, undermining his authority, isolating him, creating enough stress to make him snap or disappear. But Andre wasn't built for retreat. Every act of resistance was adding weight to his side of the scale. Back in his suite, his phone buzzed. A message from Malcolm, "We're escalating, just spoke to someone on the corporate DEI board, keep collecting." He added one more entry to his log, attempted vendor obstruction 72H to event. The next morning he woke early, dressed sharply in a navy shirt and gray slacks and made his way to the coral room. It was unlocked now and to his surprise already occupied. A woman in her late 40s stood near the far wall reviewing some fabric swatches under the overhead lights. She turned when she heard his footsteps. "Morning," she said. Her accent was faintly European Belgian maybe. "You must be Mr. Wells." "And you are." "Karine Dufresne, Corporate Quality Control, here for the Property Standards Audit." Andre nodded slowly. "Ah yes, scheduled on a Thursday 72 hours before a wedding, interesting timing." She gave a thin smile. "Yes, well, some schedules are more politically motivated than others." He liked her immediately. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Let me be frank, I'm not here to take notes on your flower arrangements. I've been reviewing internal complaints filed over the last 6 months. This resort has had patterns." Andre's heart ticked once in his chest. "I see." Karen tapped the clipboard in her hand. Scott Denham's name shows up frequently, often in proximity to guest complaints involving non-traditional weddings, interracial families, or LGBTQ+ guests. Nothing ever formal, always just subtle enough. Andre let out a slow breath. "That tracks. You've documented your experience." "Everything," he said. "Photos, emails, audio recordings, third-party correspondence." Karen gave a small, satisfied nod. "Good, keep doing that. I may not be here long, but I'm not the only one watching now." Before she turned to leave, she looked over her shoulder. "Your wedding looks beautiful, by the way. I saw the table mock-ups." Andre smiled for the first time in what felt like days. "Thank you." By noon, a message appeared in his inbox. The AV team had been fully reapproved by corporate. A correction notice had been issued. No apology, just reinstated access. Scott, meanwhile, didn't speak a word to Andre that entire day. He passed by twice during the final ceremony walkthrough but said nothing. Just a hard glance, a clipped nod, and then he disappeared behind one of the potted palms as if he had never been there at all. Andre didn't mind. The more silent Scott became, the louder the evidence grew. That evening, as guests mingled at the welcome cocktail hour, Andre stood just off the terrace, watching the sea. Gabriella's aunt came over to compliment the setup. One of Leah's cousins, Shy, with a camera around his neck, thanked him for making a place where we don't feel weird for being here. Andre smiled and nodded, keeping his emotions tucked carefully beneath his surface. He was used to this quiet kind of gratitude, the kind that came from people used to making themselves smaller in public. Later, after the last glass was cleared and the guests had turned in, Andre walked back to his room. The ocean whispered beneath the moonlight, calm but constant, much like himself. He opened his folder again, organized the week's files into a timeline. Added a new subfolder labeled Witnesses Support Emerging. He poured a glass of water, stepped onto the balcony, and stared out at the dark sea. The lines had been drawn, but now finally someone besides him had started drawing their own. Friday morning opened with a sudden stillness. The kind of quiet that precedes a storm, not in the skies, but in the air between people. Andre felt it the moment he stepped into the coral room for the final rehearsal prep. The staff moved slower, eyes darting, conversations clipped. Something was brewing. Leah and Gabriella were set to arrive in 30 minutes for their walkthrough, along with close family and the officiant. Andre had every detail mapped: music cues, timing, procession order, seating zones. The chairs were arranged in clean arcs, white cloths pinned perfectly in place. Candles lined the aisle in thick glass hurricanes, ready to be lit just before sunset the following day. He checked the lights, confirmed with Elise that the caterers were prepped, then headed toward the main lobby to meet the florist van. But when he stepped outside, he stopped cold. A sign, laminated, typed in large font, was posted on a folding easel outside the coral room. Due to internal concerns regarding event suitability, the coral room will be temporarily unavailable until further notice. We apologize for the inconvenience. Andre read it twice, slowly. Then a third time, not out of confusion, but to burn the absurdity of it into his memory. He stepped closer, snapped a clear photo of the sign, and turned toward the lobby desk. The woman working there wasn't one he recognized, probably new. Her smile faltered when she saw his face. "Who approved this?" Andre asked, calm but pointed. I was just told to put it up this morning. Mr. Denham said there was a policy issue with the event." Andre said nothing. He didn't need to. He walked past the desk directly to the general manager's office. The door was closed. He knocked once and entered. Scott was at his desk typing. He didn't look up. "We had an agreement," Andre said evenly. "This room is contracted, paid for, and approved. There is no policy issue." Scott slowly leaned back in his chair. "We've had some internal concerns. Some board members are reviewing whether hosting this kind of ceremony is consistent with our resort values." Andre stared at him. "That review didn't exist yesterday or the day before. You made this up. The sign is a lie." Scott gave a casual shrug. "Maybe it's not the right fit after all. We have other ballrooms. You locked the Coral Room 2 days ago for maintenance. Now it's unsuitable. The only consistent thing here is your discomfort with two women in love." Scott's expression sharpened. "Watch yourself." Andre stepped forward, steady and clear-eyed. "No, you watch yourself, because this is discrimination, and I have every step of it documented: emails, recordings, witnesses, timestamps. This is no longer a disagreement, it's a civil liability." There was a long silence. Then Scott stood, slow and theatrical, like he was building a performance. "You think your little complaint is going to change anything? I've been running this place for 10 years. People like you blow through here and disappear. I've dealt with louder than you." Andre didn't blink. "I'm not here to be loud, I'm here to finish a wedding, and when it's done, you won't be running this place anymore." He turned and walked out. He didn't slam the door, he didn't raise his voice, but the message landed with precision. By the time Andre returned to the Coral Room, the sign had been quietly removed. Leah and Gabriella arrived just minutes later, full of excitement. They had no idea what had nearly happened. Andre greeted them with a wide smile as if nothing at all had changed and began walking them through the ceremony flow. He carried their joy like a shield. Later that afternoon, Elise found him near the beach bar. "I saw the sign," she said quietly, "and I heard what you said to him." Andre exhaled. "I didn't yell." "No, but you didn't need to. People saw it, Andre. We all did. He tried to cancel a wedding 48 hours out, and the only reason it didn't work is because you were ready." She handed him a USB drive. "What's this?" "Camera footage," she said. "From the hallway, time-stamped. Shows the sign going up and Scott giving the order. Thought you might want a copy." Andre took it slowly. "Thank you." "You've got more allies than you realize," Elise said. "We just needed to see someone stand firm first." By evening, word had spread. Staff who had kept their distance began quietly offering their support. One of the housekeepers approached Andre near the spa and mentioned she'd overheard Scott complaining about those kinds of weddings on a staff radio. A bartender confirmed the AV contractor's story. Another guest mentioned Scott making snide remarks at the welcome cocktail hour. The silence was breaking. Andre updated his timeline, labeled the folder 6, attempted event shutdown. He included the photo of the sign, the witness statements, and a copy of the footage from Elise. At midnight, he received a brief email from corporate. "Mr. Wells, we acknowledge receipt of your formal documentation. Effective immediately, Coral Bay Retreat is under internal investigation regarding alleged discriminatory practices. Please continue to direct all concerns to the designated liaison, Ms. Karen Dufresne. Respectfully. Coral Bay Corporate Affairs." It wasn't the finish line, but the investigation was now official and Scott's authority was no longer absolute. Andre closed the laptop. Outside, the sea murmured in the dark, unbothered by human drama, but inside Coral Bay the tide was turning. Tomorrow he would deliver the wedding, and after that, justice. The sky was still streaked with rose gold when Andre stepped onto the sunset terrace. He liked being first. The quiet of the morning, the soft wind off the water, the untouched beauty of the space, it was his moment to gather himself before the day turned electric. Today wasn't just about a wedding. It was about what the ceremony represented, standing at the edge of a resort that had done everything to deny its legitimacy. Andre moved through the terrace with his usual quiet efficiency, checking the floral arches, testing the microphones, walking the aisle one last time. Everything was exactly where it needed to be. The ocean beyond shimmered with promise. By 8, the vendors had arrived. Elise coordinated final plate placements, the AV team ran cables discreetly behind ferns, and the Coral Bay staff, perhaps for the first time all week, worked with a kind of quiet urgency. No one said it aloud, but they all knew eyes were on them now. Corporate eyes, legal eyes, and Andre's eyes. Leah and Gabriella were getting ready in separate suites, each with a small group of family and friends. Andre checked in with both. Leah's mother hugged him when he arrived. "I don't know how you did it," she whispered, "but thank you." Andre smiled. "You raised an extraordinary daughter, my job was easy." Upstairs, Gabriella was adjusting the sleeve of her cream-colored suit jacket in front of the mirror. She caught Andre's reflection behind her and grinned. "Think the ocean's ready for this level of power couple?" Andre laughed. The ocean might need a moment. He stepped back and let them enjoy their morning. He didn't need to be in the center of it. His place was just outside the spotlight, making sure the light fell exactly where it should. By late afternoon, guests began to arrive. Andre stood near the entrance, greeting them one by one, directing them down the palm-lined path to the terrace. The resort staff, now on high alert, moved with uncommon precision. Champagne was poured with care. No trays were dropped, no glares or whispers. Scott Denham was there too, watching from the edge of the welcome area. He wasn't smiling. He didn't speak. He stood in a navy suit by the main archway, hands clasped, pretending he was supervising logistics, but his posture had changed. He looked smaller now, tighter, like a man who knew the wind had shifted. The music began just before sunset. A string quartet played softly beneath the whisper of waves. The guests stood. Gabriella walked down the aisle first, her steps slow, confident. Leah followed moments later, radiant in a silk gown that caught every flicker of light. The air stilled. Even the birds seemed to pause. Andre stood just out of view, earpiece in, heart steady. He listened for any cue, any misstep. There were none. The ceremony flowed like water, vows soft and sure, tears from parents, laughter from friends. When they kissed, the terrace erupted in cheers, and Andre let himself exhale. He stayed behind as the guests moved to the choral room for the reception. Elise passed by him and touched his arm. "You did it," she said. "We did it," he replied. Inside the choral room, the energy shifted again. It wasn't just a reception, it was a celebration of defiance. The room, once locked and labeled unsuitable, was now filled with joy and dancing and stories. Every detail had landed. The seating chart worked flawlessly. The food came out hot and on time. The playlist, curated with intention, carried everyone from first dances to group sing-alongs. Andre kept to the side, but he felt the stares. Guests who'd heard whispers of what had happened. Staff who now looked at him differently, not with pity, with respect. Midway through the evening, a woman approached him quietly. She was in her 60s, elegant, with a soft smile. "I just wanted to thank you," she said. "I have a daughter who's engaged. She's been scared to have a wedding. Seeing this, seeing what you created, it matters." Andre nodded. "She deserves joy." "She'll have it," the woman said. "You've made that easier." Later, Malcolm texted, saw the photos, heard from the DEI board. "You just made Coral Bay a national example," quietly, strategically, like always. Andre smiled at the screen, then looked up and saw Scott. The general manager was standing near the reception entrance, staring at the room like he didn't recognize it anymore. Like the resort had slipped out of his grip and become something new. Andre watched him watch. And for the first time, he felt no anger, just clarity. This was what power looked like. Not control, not fear, but presence, witness, dignity, no matter how hard they tried to steal it. Scott didn't stay long. 10 minutes later, he disappeared into the hall. By the end of the night, Gabriella and Leah stood on the dance floor surrounded by friends and family, swaying to a final song. Andre lingered near the exit, watching them, letting the weight of the week begin to settle. He'd done his job. He'd done more than that. As the last guests drifted out and the candles were extinguished, Elise approached with a folder in her hand. "Photos from the day," she said, "and a copy of that hallway footage, just in case." Andre took the folder and placed it gently in his satchel. "Thank you," he said. "For everything," she replied. He walked out into the night, the sea at his back, the stars high and sharp above him. Tomorrow, the investigation would continue. Statements would be taken, files would be reviewed, but tonight there had been a wedding, and nothing, not silence, not sabotage, not power in the wrong hands, had stopped it. The morning after the wedding, the resort felt different. It wasn't louder or quieter, just clearer. The fog of denial that had wrapped itself around Coral Bay had begun to lift, revealing things long buried beneath courtesy and protocol. Andre rose early, as always. He brewed coffee in his suite, opened his laptop, and began organizing files. There was a rhythm to it now, timestamps, file labels, cross-references. What had started as a personal defense had evolved into a ledger, one that no one could ignore anymore. At 9:05 a.m., his phone rang. It was Karen Dufresne. "We've moved to formal review," she said. "I'll be interviewing staff throughout the day. Several have already requested to speak on record, voluntarily." "Voluntarily?" Andre echoed. Karen's voice was calm but firm. "Your actions gave them permission. They know what happened this week wasn't isolated." Andre sat forward. "Do you need me present?" "No," she said. "You've given us more than enough already. But we may need a sworn statement soon, and we'd like to retain access to your documentation." "Of course," he said, everything backed up. There was a pause, then Karen added, "This isn't just about one manager anymore. We're uncovering a pattern of discriminatory booking practices. Certain couples discouraged from reserving rooms. Vendors blacklisted for supporting LGBTQ plus events. It's deeper than we expected. Andre closed his eyes for a moment. He wasn't surprised, but the confirmation still hit hard. Karen continued. If you're willing, I'd also like you to speak with our corporate diversity board, off the record for now, help them understand how this unfolded from the inside. I'll do it, Andre said, just tell me when. As the day unfolded, the resort moved with strange duality. Guests laughed by the pool, drinks were served under umbrellas, and the breeze rolled in like always, but behind the scenes something else was unraveling. Quiet meetings took place in side rooms. Laptops closed quickly when footsteps approached. Staff members began to look at each other differently. Around noon, Andre received a knock on his suite door. Elise stood there with a nervous smile. Got a minute. He let her in and she sat on the edge of the armchair holding a folded sheet of paper. I gave my statement this morning, she said, told them everything. The coral room, the sign, Scott's comments, the vendor call, all of it. Andre watched her closely. That couldn't have been easy. It was, but it was right. She handed him the paper. This is my resignation letter. I haven't submitted it yet, but I wanted you to see it. Andre skimmed it, heart tightening. Elise. I'm not quitting because of you, she said quickly. I'm quitting because I stayed quiet too long. I watched things happen to other guests, other planners, and I didn't step in. This isn't just Scott, it's what he was allowed to become. Andre folded the letter gently and placed it on the coffee table. Whatever you decide, know that what you did this week mattered. People saw you. That afternoon, Andre walked the property alone, not checking logistics, just walking. Guests he didn't know nodded at him as he passed. A young man stopped him outside the spa and said, "You planned that wedding, right? It was beautiful." "Thank you," Andre replied. The man hesitated, then added, "I was here last year with my boyfriend. We tried to book a couple's massage. They told us the spa didn't offer that type of experience. I didn't say anything at the time, we just left." Andre's throat tightened. "Would you be willing to write that down for the corporate office?" The man nodded. "Yeah, I think I would." By late afternoon, Karen texted again. 6 staff members gave corroborating testimony. 3 former guests emailed statements. 1 vendor filed a complaint about past discrimination. This is moving quickly now. Andre read the message twice. Then once more, momentum, not just reaction. Change. That evening, Malcolm called. "You're in the wind now, Dree, the kind that clears the air." "What's the temperature over there?" Andre asked. Board's agitated, legal's nervous, but PR is already drafting a statement, and the DEI Council is demanding action. Malcolm paused, then added, "Scott's being placed on administrative leave, effective tomorrow morning." Andre closed his eyes just for a second. Will it hold? Depends on how far the rot goes, but your documentation made it impossible to ignore, and now that others are speaking, they can't hide behind procedure anymore. Andre thanked him and ended the call. Outside, the sun was beginning to set again. It looked almost exactly as it had the day before, same pink skies, same breeze through the palms, but the ground beneath it had shifted. That night, Andre dined alone at the resort's oceanfront restaurant. He didn't sit in the corner or tuck himself into a quiet booth. He took a table at the center of the terrace, facing the water where anyone passing by could see him. One of the servers, a young man with dark curls and a nervous smile, paused beside him during dessert. "I saw you stand up to him. Everyone did. It's been different around here since." Andre nodded. "I hope it stays that way." The server hesitated, then said, "My brother, getting married next year to another guy. They're thinking of doing it abroad. I'm going to tell them to call you." Andre smiled. "I'd be honored." He finished his meal slowly, not because he was savoring the food, but because he wanted to sit in the stillness. For once, without needing to guard against the next attack. Later in his room, he added the day's notes to the file. Cracks widening, systems waking up, people finding voice. The folder that had started with a single audio recording now held over 70 distinct files. It no longer felt like protection, it felt like history. The email came at 7:42 a.m. while the sun was still low on the horizon and the waves rolled in like breath across the sand. Andre was on the balcony, sipping his coffee, the resort still drowsy in the early morning haze. His inbox chimed and he opened the message without expectation. Subject: Coral Bay Internal Investigation, Final Action Notice. Mr. Wells, following a formal investigation into the conduct of General Manager Scott Denham and the operational practices at Coral Bay Retreat, we have concluded our review. Effective immediately, Mr. Denham has been terminated for cause. Additionally, Coral Bay's parent company is initiating a full internal audit of all guest services, vendor partnerships, and hiring practices. A public statement acknowledging these actions will be released within the next 48 hours. We thank you for your professionalism and your role in bringing this matter to our attention. A member of our executive team will follow up regarding policy reforms and upcoming initiatives related to inclusive event planning. Sincerely, Coral Bay Corporate Affairs. Andre read it once, then again. He set the phone down and he breathed. It wasn't joy exactly, nor was it relief. It was something quieter, a loosening in his chest, a stillness in his ribs, a pressure that had pressed in all week, slowly uncoiling like a fist finally unclenched. Downstairs, the resort was waking up. Guests moved toward the breakfast buffet. A couple strolled along the shore. Housekeeping carts rolled along the tiled hallways. From the outside, nothing had changed, and yet everything had. Andre didn't say anything to the staff as he checked out. He didn't need to. Elise caught his eye from the concierge desk and gave him a slight nod. One of the servers from the reception saluted him playfully from behind a stack of plates. A housekeeper paused in the hallway just long enough to meet his gaze and mouth a soft, "Thank you." He nodded back and kept walking. The car service waited by the main entrance. Andre slid into the back seat, set his bag on the seat beside him, and gave the driver a polite smile. "Airport," he said, "Terminal B." As they pulled away, Andre didn't look back. He didn't need to see the resort in his rearview mirror to know what he was leaving behind. He arrived early at the airport and settled into a quiet corner near a floor-to-ceiling window. Planes rolled past in the distance, engines humming. He opened his laptop, uploaded the final files to a secure drive, and labeled the last folder, "Outcome Confirmed." Then he sent a brief email to Malcolm. "Scott's out. Policy review is underway. Thank you for standing behind me." Malcolm responded almost immediately. "You didn't need me to stand behind you. You just needed space to keep standing on your own. Proud of you." Andre closed the laptop. He watched the plane's taxi. He watched a child press her face to the glass. He watched a woman in a beige blazer sip coffee alone, reading something that made her smile. Life, it seemed, kept moving, even after hard weeks, even after long fights. 2 days later, Coral Bay issued its public statement. It went viral within hours. The wording was sterile, professional, but buried in the fifth paragraph was the truth. We failed to uphold our stated commitment to equity and inclusivity. We acknowledge that discrimination occurred within our leadership, and we apologize to the individuals directly affected. Andre's name wasn't mentioned, neither was Leah's or Gabriella, but they all knew who the statement was for. Later that week, Leah emailed Andre a photo from their honeymoon. They were on a rooftop in Lisbon, holding hands, wine glasses raised, city lights glowing behind them. Underneath, the message read, "You gave us the best day of our lives, and you gave us more than that too. We'll never forget it." Andre replied simply, "Neither will I." In the weeks that followed, the ripples kept spreading. Vendors who had been blacklisted reached out to share their stories. Other LGBTQ+ couples came forward, describing subtle rejections and quietly canceled bookings at similar resorts. The Coral Bay parent company, under mounting public pressure, launched a new initiative for inclusive destination events. Andre was invited to consult. Not publicly, not for headlines, quietly, thoughtfully, he accepted. One afternoon in late spring, Andre found himself standing before a panel of corporate executives in a glass-walled boardroom overlooking a harbor. He spoke plainly, without embellishment, about professionalism, about barriers, about what dignity looked like when no one was watching. He told them the story, not of Scott Denham, but of Coral Bay. Of silence, of witnesses, of what happens when someone decides not to look away anymore. And when he was done, they didn't clap. They didn't congratulate him, they just listened, and that to Andre was more meaningful than applause. By summer, he was back to work, planning, coordinating, shaping days that mattered. His calendar filled quickly, more LGBTQ+ weddings, more couples who wanted their moment to be more than just legal. They wanted it to feel welcome. One evening, after wrapping a site visit in Santa Barbara, Andre stood at the edge of a vineyard watching the sun fall into the sea. A young planner shadowing him that week asked the question people often did. Don't you ever get tired of the drama, of having to fight so hard just to do your job? Andre smiled, not bitterly, not sadly. No, he said, because it's not just a job and I don't fight every day, I just stand. Sometimes that's all it takes. He turned back toward the vineyard. The sky was golden. The wind moved gently through the rows. And somewhere not far from here, another couple was falling in love.